What's going on, everyone? So Chris Paul was on Dwayne Wade's podcast for iHeartRadio of The Why with Dwayne Wade, and they were reminiscing and just going through the usual podcast stuff. And then they dropped some inside information about Chris Paul potentially teaming up with Dwayne Wade and LeBron James, which would have been back in 2011. And basically that Miami Heat, after the Los Angeles Lakers trade ended up getting vetoed and falling through, that Pat Riley and the Miami Heat considered trading for Chris Paul, and that would have been quite the big three, because you're talking about a Chris Paul that was in his prime, that ultimately went to the Los Angeles Clippers, had a great stretch with the Clippers, and it would have been very interesting to see what would have a Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, and LeBron James team up looked like. The reason it didn't happen is incredibly surprising to me. So, according to Chris Paul and Dwayne Wade, the reason that the trade didn't go through is neither of them wanted to give up the number 3. Dwayne Wade didn't want to give up number 3. Chris Paul didn't want to give up the number 3. Now, I think it is, and this is just me personally, it is incredibly silly that Chris Paul, who may go down as the greatest player or one of the greatest players to never win a championship, is all boiled down to him not wanting to trade the number CP3. Now, I get it, right? It's his identity. It's what he's built his brand around. You know, again, CP3. I even kind of jokes about it in the podcast where he's like, oh, CP6, like how would that have looked? But like he even mentioned like Dwayne Wade, you're older, you could have been CP33 or Dwayne Wade 33, but to me it's like Chris Paul could have been 33, right? Figure it out, CP9, right? CP3PO, like 30, right? CP30, whatever you do to go win that championship. Now, at the time, he was still, relatively early in his career. I'm sure he imagined that, look, I have opportunities. I'm going to win a championship at some point. But you were all but guaranteed. Seriously. LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Paul as a big three, without a doubt, would have won at least one, if not 2 championships. They may have won 3 out of the 4 years, right? If Chris Paul could have been healthy and him being that kind of orchestrator, that playmaker, would have been able to take a lot of pressure off of LeBron James. His ability to hit shots, especially the mid-range, back in 2011 and through 2014 was just a different time as well. I get the idea of like, it's my brand, it's my number, and they even talked about how, important a number is for a player, right? And you see players all the time that will go somewhere and it's like, man, I want to keep my number. I want to have my number. And they'll even pay or, give something extravagant in order to get that number from said player. And I get both guys were stars. But one, Miami was Dwayne Wade's team, right? Like that, he was Mr. Miami. And the number 3 ended up getting retired in Miami in 2020. Dwayne Wade ended up retiring his jersey and stuff. But like my thing is, if you're Chris Paul and you have that opportunity, how do you turn that down for a jersey number? Again, I just don't get it. Look, I hooped. I had my number. I still hold fond ties and memories to my number. But if somebody offered me something significant for that number, you best believe I'm giving up that number, especially for a chance to win an NBA championship. And he would have won multiple. He wouldn't have won just one. He would have won probably at least 2. I mean, they would have probably won as many as they did with Wade, Bosch, and LeBron. But I think it's possible that they may have won more, right? I mean, because you literally could have had your starting or your big 3, you'd have point guard Chris Paul, shooting guard Dwayne Wade, your 3 or 4 LeBron James. I wonder how different Miami would have looked with Chris Paul, right? Because you wouldn't have Chris Bosh, who eventually shifted over to the five. LeBron played the four a lot. You had guys like Shane Battier, things like that. But would they have, would they have just kept like guys like Birdman and things like that? Or would they have just kind of maybe went bigger in the front court where they kind of went the shooting route, right? And kind of spreading the floor. And then even with Chris Bosh and his ability to spread teams out, right? How would that team have looked on both sides of the basketball? Would have been really interesting to see. This is always one of those things that's like, you hear about all the what ifs and you hear about all the, like Melo almost went to Miami, right? Melo was almost traded to the Lakers, right? Carmelo Anthony revealed that before he went to the Knicks, that the Lakers almost acquired him, and him and Kobe would have teamed up. And this was, pre-Kobe Achilles. So how would that have looked? It's always fun to hear these things. I mean, even going back to like, Charles Barkley and all the destinations he potentially could have went to, right? Steph Curry was almost traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, what would him and Giannis have looked like? It's just, I love hearing these like what ifs and conversations, but this to me sounds like it was about as close to a done deal as possible. They just couldn't settle on the number. And that was Chris Paul's brother, CJ, was the one that proposed, was like, hey, so which one of you is changing your number? And to I don't know, again, it's just, to me, it just sounds, it's something that's so petty, right? And look, Chris Paul has now entered the ending stages of his career. And, he had chances even beyond him going to Miami. Like Chris Paul with the Clippers and Lob City was one of the best teams in the league for a long time. They just were never able to get over the hump. And, we've heard stories from various people that were on that team that just said, everyone kind of just had different opinions. Everyone kind of just had different ideas of what they wanted. And, it was basically boiled down to selfishness. Chris Paul with the Houston Rockets, right? If it wasn't for Kevin Durant and on the Golden State Warriors, Chris Paul very well might have won a championship. I mean, there was those years that Houston looked like nobody was stopping them, and they were the closest to ever beating the Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant, and then even with the Phoenix Suns, right? He goes to an NBA Finals, and they ended up losing to Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. So it's funny to see all these like tie-ins and connections. But now Chris Paul has just reached this stage where he's 38 years old. He's accepted a bench role. He's accepted a reduced role. And I do think, not really this year, because I just don't see the Warriors personally winning a championship. It's one of those things you never want to count out the Warriors. But they have a very big hill to climb in order for them to get into the postseason. And look, don't get me wrong, like the Warriors in the post, no one wants to play the Warriors in the playoffs. Nobody does. But I just think ultimately somebody's going to beat them. And, Chris Paul, whether he stays with the Warriors or he goes elsewhere because he'd be a free agent, I think he makes a lot of sense for a veteran team off the bench in a limited role. So he very well could, if he picks the right place, gets the right destination, maybe he ends up signing with the contender and winning a championship. But it's not the same thing as if he won a championship as one of the key guys. Right? He goes to Miami. It's him, LeBron, and Wade. Those are the three guys. Right? So Chris Paul winning a championship as one of the leaders, as one of the premier players, and Chris Paul winning a championship as like the eighth guy on the team, it's not the same thing. And so I just think, I don't know, things like this personally drive me crazy. Because it's like, we've always perceived Chris Paul as a guy that's the ultimate competitor, that always wants to win, that, he just unfortunately hasn't had, because there is a lot of luck and circumstances and things that go into winning an NBA championship. And it was always kind of perceived as like, Chris Paul was that guy that would do anything to win. Doesn't matter what it is. He would do anything. And then it come to find out that he had a chance, and it was all because of a jersey number. It's like, come on, man, figure it out. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What did you think of this information? Do you feel the same way I do, where it's like, yeah, it was silly. It's just silly to basically essentially throw away a championship for a jersey number? Or do you think, no, it's fine, it's understandable, it's justifiable? Again, I feel what your thoughts are. Let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Lets me enjoy these types of videos. Truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.